I mean, ultimately, there's nothing going to impact the playoffs for 2012. That amendment just clarifies the fact that UIL has the rights to all postseason contests. And it also, once the contract is signed and all those things are covered, it will allow for a little bit more flexibility in the televising of football playoff games, but will not impact anything for the 2012 season. The biggest difference now is that it's clear that UIL has the rights to all playoff games and postseason games across all activities. And the only other difference will be is it'll be a little bit easier to have the opportunity, if the contract allows for it, once those rights are granted, for football games to potentially be televised in the future, with the deletion of the fact that it has to be sold out 48 hours in advance. But again, that's something that'll be impacting in the future, not currently in 2012.
Okay.
Well, I mean, certainly once that is fully implemented, we'll do a job of explaining exactly what that does. But again, the key thing is, number one, it doesn't impact anything right now in 2012. And the thing that it really did is make it clear that UIL now has the rights to all playoff games, not just certain rounds of the playoffs, and that there is going to be some additional flexibility in how football games can be televised in the future for playoffs. But there still will be rights associated with those that are owned by UIL that will be granted to a particular entity through a contract, and then whatever arrangements are worked out between the group that holds the rights at that time and the local school districts and local broadcasters will be developed, and that information will be released at a later date. The rights for playoffs games will be handled through UIL and whoever they grant the contract to. It won't be something done by the local schools or local broadcasters. Certainly local schools will have to give permission in the process for their games to be televised. Part of it is mutual agreement, but the key factor is those rights are held by UIL and will be granted to a particular broadcaster, who then will work out the process how other people could get involved. Yeah, I think that was one of the things that we talked about when we put that amendment together, is that the sellout rule that was in place for televising football playoff games was a rule that was developed when the majority of the playoff games, or almost all the playoff games, were played in high school stadiums, that selling out those stadiums really wasn't that much of an issue. Now that stadiums are getting larger, playoff games are being played in venues that are larger, college facilities, professional facilities, the chance of actually selling out one of those large venues 48 hours in advance, or selling it out at all, is extremely difficult. So we feel like this alteration to that sellout part of the overall broadcasting rule will allow for a little bit more flexibility, for a chance for those games that are being played in larger venues to be televised if the proper permissions and rights are granted.
And does it change anything for like internet broadcasts? That all still kind of fall under the same umbrella?
Well, that was one of the other reasons why we looked at that broadcasting rule, is to make sure that the language that we had in there was covering all the new technologies and things that are out there. So yeah, the new rule that will be in place once the commissioner signs off and everything is finalized is designed to cover any form of transmission of that broadcast, regardless of the means of that transmission.